Today, we're talking about negotiation. If you want to get more out of life and stop leaving opportunities on the table, you need to learn how to negotiate at a higher level. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through my 6 favorite negotiation techniques that will fundamentally change the way you approach any important conversation. By the way, my name is Roy. I have been obsessed with negotiation since I was 12 years old. I used this to get a billionaire to increase his offer to me by 50%, and I used it to beat out 10 other buyers to buy the house I'm sitting in right now. So let's get to the first technique, the frame. What is the frame? This is the first and most important technique I want to talk about today. So a frame is a unique concept, but it's how you start the negotiation. And the thing that's amazing is how you start the negotiation will substantially affect how you end the negotiation. That's why I'm talking about this topic first, the frame. The frame is not about being aggressive. It's about defining the problem that needs to be solved right up front. So it's the lens through which the entire conversation is viewed. Is this a conversation about the price of a car, or is it about the cost of not having a reliable vehicle? You know, most people walk into a negotiation and whatever the other party says, they accept it. And your job has to reframe it so that you have to work twice as hard to get them to where you want to be. Former FBI hostage Chris Voss talks about this all the time because he says in a hostage situation, the frame isn't about the money, it's about getting everyone out safely. But the same principle applies all over the place. You need to shift the frame from not what it costs you to what it benefits you. Imagine you're asking for a raise. So your boss's frame starts out with 2%. You don't want 2%. So you end up arguing that number, but you need to present it about the value you bring. Talk about the $1 million you saved the company. Suddenly, the conversation isn't about the budget. It's about your value. Let's get to the next one, the mirror. Once you've set the frame, the next tool you need is the mirror. It's simple, repeating the last 1 to 3 words of your counterpart's sentence with a questioning intonation. Many therapists use this approach to get their clients to talk. Why does this work? Well, it makes the other person feel heard and understood, and it also builds trust. It leverages a natural human tendency. Chris Voss never split the difference. The hostage negotiator, he calls this one of the most powerful tools for information gathering, because it's the simplest way to get the other person to expand on what they're thinking. If a contractor says, well, to get that done, it's going to be expensive. Instead of reacting to the price, you just say, really expensive? And then you're quiet. 9 times out of 10, they tell you what's going on. This changed, that changed, and then they tell you why it's going to get more expensive. But here's the kicker. When you do that, you stay silent. Now they start wondering, is this too much for this person? They might end up lowering their price from just repeating what they said. This could get your price down without haggling. Let's get to technique 3, the anchor. Again, you're taking initiative to control the narrative. The first price mentioned, no matter how arbitrary, becomes the reference point for the entire discussion. And the next person that speaks loses. Where do I get this from? It actually comes from psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. They found that even completely random numbers can influence people's estimates. And in a negotiation, that means the first offer sets the boundaries of what's considered reasonable. But what about a reverse anchor? I was selling a domain name to a billionaire. He came in with a big offer. He was trying to set the anchor, but I wanted more. But I knew once I spoke, I put a ceiling on my offer. I didn't know how much he'd be willing to increase his price, so I knew the first person to speak loses. So rather than addressing the number he said, I took my time. And I never said no, but I never said yes. And this was a guy who sold his company for $500 million. But before I knew it, by never saying no or yes, he raised his price by 50%. Remember, I never asked for anything. I just didn't address his offer. He set the anchor. I said nothing. If you're buying something, you can definitely start off with a number and get the conversation around your number, not around their number. That is a huge part of setting the stage for a successful negotiation. These techniques are powerful, but they are just one part of a complete negotiation system. There's a lot more to learn, there's a lot more things, and if you're serious about mastering the skill, I teach the full process in my online course, The Negotiation School. I break down the whole system, from preparation to closing. I have real-world examples, case studies. I show you negotiations in action. So if you're serious about mastering this skill, click the link in the description so that you can learn more about the course. But let's get to technique 4, strategic silence. Teach the power of using silence to your advantage. Most people are so uncomfortable with silence. They rush to fill it, often by giving up valuable information or concessions. After you make a point or you ask a tough question, get quiet, because the first person to speak loses. You know, humans are wired for social connection. Silence is weird. It feels like a rupture in that connection, and people will always do anything to repair it. And in negotiation, that means they're talking instead of listening. A friend of mine was buying a home in Colorado. They had negotiated many of the points, but the price was still not firm. The buyer, my friend, knew the seller needed to sell the house, but wanted another 2 months to move. So my friend got on the phone with him, and he was on there with his real estate agent, his wife, the seller. Everybody was on the call. My friend told his wife not to say a word, and he told his real estate agent the same thing. He got on the phone, he stated his offer and his willingness to give the seller the 60 days, and he said nothing. He said it was probably at least 30 seconds, maybe a minute. They finally agreed. The silence closed the deal. I love that story because I have been there so many times. People don't like uncertainty because they feel they're losing the deal, and no one wants to lose. Let's get to technique 5, the walk. In the book, Getting to Yes, written by Roger Fisher and William Ury, who are in the Harvard Negotiation Project, they came up with the term BATNA because it comes from your best alternative from not being aggressive. I once lost a deal to a competitor, and the president of the company, who had a strong relationship, personally sat down with me to deliver the bad news. I was totally professional. The other competitor, he said, screamed at him. I thanked him for the opportunity. I said, hope we could do more deals in the future. And then I doubled down on providing great service to the account for the next 6 months. And then they came back and they said, guess what, Roy? The original deal fell apart. The people didn't follow through. It's all yours. I lost the deal gracefully, was willing to walk, and I got it back. Nothing beats a strong relationship. You can only be willing to walk away, though, if you've done your homework and you know what your other options are. Never go into a negotiation where you need the deal to work. You always need other options. Let's get to technique 6, the lens. How do you find out what they really want, and how do you know when to ask? In every negotiation, master negotiators focus on the why. Ask yourself, why do they want to do business with me? They want office space on the 5th or higher floor. Why? Well, when you find out in the past the lower floors were dark and noisy, then if you have a first floor space that's sunny and quiet for 40% less, sounds like a closed deal to me. William Ury wrote a book, Getting to Yes, where he talks about interest versus position. A position is what someone says they want, but an interest is why they want it. And when you understand the interest, you can find solutions the other side never even considered. Someone buying your used car says they want a lower price. That's their position. But the interest might be they're worried about a big repair bill. These are two totally different issues. So if you only hear the position and you lower your price, you're giving them money. You might even lose the deal. But if you hear the interest and offer to split the cost of a mechanic inspection, they might be very interested, and then you get the deals closed. Interest versus positions is one of the secret sauces of master negotiators. This is the most important part of any negotiation. So if you want to go deeper and learn some of the techniques or more of these techniques that you can use to immediately improve as a negotiator, click here to watch the next video, where I'm going to show you how to improve your negotiation skills with some techniques that you can implement in your next conversation. See you soon.